Thanks for joining us on the NRT Now podcast, part of the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Sit back and relax as we chat with your favorite artists, introduce you to new artists, and more. Now here's your host, Jake.
We are here with Wande, and I gotta tell you, I had to have this conversation with you here just because I need to know how to pronounce your name. I mean, it looks like Wande, like I just wasn't sure, so I just had to make sure that we got that clarified here.
Yeah, so for the people, it's Wande.
So I noticed that you were from Austin originally, and you're now in Atlanta?
Yeah, correct. So I actually ended up moving down to Atlanta from Austin to be a part of Reach Records.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that they were based in Atlanta. I mean, I know I probably should have, but...
Yeah, so we're based out here in Atlanta, and so it's really cool just getting to be with some of the other artists, and we have like a studio down here, so it's a cool way for us to have like a home base to create. Somewhere
in the middle of all of this, you picked up some hardware on your hand. Was that in Austin, or did that happen in Atlanta?
Oh, you mean like getting engaged? I was like hardware, like music. I was like a microphone, but yeah. So I've actually been dating my fiance since I was in college. So we actually met in Austin at the University of Texas, and then I ended up getting engaged a couple of years later. And so, ironically, it was still in Austin that I got engaged, but it was after moving to Atlanta, like that. All that happened.
I really wish that we would have determined that you went to UT before we started this, because I'm more of an Oklahoma fan. And I just don't know if this can happen here. Yeah, I think there's like a Boomer Sooner that has to come out somewhere in this.
We'll still show some love, but whenever it's time for the OU showdown, we'll show you who's boss.
It has been so long since I've been able to go to one of the Red River shootouts. It has been. It's probably been about 5 years now since I got to go.
That's been like a fun time though, and like a huge big deal. So it's really cool, like to show like the school spirit and everything, like the energy.
I live in Dallas area, kind of southwest side.
Yeah. So then you were like already right there in the middle of all the action.
Yep. So for those of you listening that don't know, this actually happens at the State Fair of Texas, which, everything's bigger in Texas, and State Fair is no exception. And they have the Cotton Bowl arena that is just massive, and it happens during fair time. It's just crazy. Is all you can describe it.
Yeah, you can get deep fried butter or something. Like you can get anything you want, honestly, at the State Fair.
Dr. Pepper, like that's one that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
If you can bread it and deep fry it, it's there somewhere.
They figured it out.
Drumsticks, turkey drumsticks, like the size of.
Oh yeah, yeah, pretty much. It's just so many memories, so many interesting things there.
So now you had the normal State Fair, and then you add the Texas OU football game, which it's a super heated rivalry. It's been going on for many, many moons. And you try to get out of the game, and like you can't move, period, just because it's so concentrated in this one Cotton Bowl. But so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the year I went, Oklahoma won, of course, like they should.
Okay. Congratulations.
But it was just such a cool atmosphere because we were down by one of the end zones, about 15, 20 rows up, which in this stadium feels like 10 if you're going to go to any other stadium. Just the atmosphere and the energy just of a rivalry game and just college football in general is just so much fun. It was just an absolute blast that we got to go do that year.
Yeah, I think definitely it's a fun experience for a lot of people to just be able to enjoy like seeing that whole college football live action with the football.
Thankfully, it's only about a 3.5 hour drive either side.
Yeah, so it's not too intense.
Well, I've got to say, I actually, before I knew who Wande was as an artist, I actually started following you on social media somehow. I don't know how that happened, but you just started scrolling through. Sorry, you started just popping up through my feed somewhere. And man, I think that's what drew me to following you a little bit more than all of a sudden finding that, hey, you're an artist on Reach Records, which is kind of fun. So just want to talk a little bit about just kind of living in our culture right now. What I'll say is, I mean, your Valentine's Day joke was amazing. I still have that screenshot saved on my phone. Oh man, I'm going to have to figure out, what was that one? I had it all lined up in my head and then it left.
I'm always a sporadic person, so I'm like, what would I have said?
It was a complete dad joke, and it was amazing. How do you get a country girl's attention?
Oh, attractor. LOL, LOL. Yeah.
I still have that set on my phone. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was a
Yeah.
fun one. It's so funny. Like I'm a girl, but I love dad jokes. Like they're great, great. It's a great time all the time.
I mean, I've been a dad for 10 years now, and I'm pretty sure I had a little bit of warm-up period before that too, but like dad jokes are my wheelhouse. If I don't get my little girl to roll her eyes at least once a day, I feel like I failed as a dad. No, I just want to talk a little bit about kind of the culture that we're living in, because a lot of what your social media posts is just some of these truths about leaning into God and the Bible, more so than kind of what we see swirling around us, and especially what feels like is absolutely crazy, like we've never seen, which that's probably debatable, but just standing true. And I'd just like to hear you talk a little bit about that and kind of where you go as you are posting some of what you do.
Yeah, so basically, like everything I post just derives from my life in general. So it just kind of naturally flows out. I think the way God created me, I'm just like a natural. I want to share things with people. I want to, if I learn something positive that I could use that I think would be useful to somebody else's life, I want to share it with them. So I think that all that mixed with just like being fun and everything kind of just all boils down into like what I end up posting on my social media, which is you'll get faith and, you'll get fun. So you'll get all the above.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like right now, I'm pulling up your Instagram while we're talking here.
Mhm.
OMG, it's Wande.
Yeah.
I mean, great handle to start with. Like, here's one here. High key, treating everything you do like it's worship unto the Lord helps you achieve by default in all areas of life. There's a different level of awareness, respect, diligence, and honor in how you care for your time, relationships, and tasks if you view it from that perspective. If you truly viewed others as children of God, you wouldn't play them, disrespect their body, or look at them like they're nobody. If you viewed time as a limited gift, you would maximize it. And if you saw your actions as a reflection of God, you'd be punctual and execute with excellence. I mean, just straight fire. I mean, that's not uncommon for you to be posting. And like I said, I guess what kind of really struck me, why I think I started following you on social, is just in a time where we have like a lot of narratives that kind of go back and forth. And we're talking a lot in narratives, I feel, in our country right now, and in the church, I mean, just everywhere. I mean, you have, kind of these nuggets that come through here that just dig past narratives, that dig past what you see on TV, all that kind of stuff, and kind of dive back in. I mean, that's something that's like super refreshing to dive back into what God says.
Yeah, and I think honestly too, it just comes from like self-reflections as well. Like, so I think it's not even so much as like, oh, this is advice for everybody else, but it's also like advice for myself to apply to my everyday life. Because I think every day, like, because I'm a human, so obviously I'm not perfect, but every day I'm striving to be better and like just realize, okay, like what is God teaching me and like what does He show in His Word? And I think the more time I spend with God, the more He reveals things to me. And I make self-reflections of myself. Like, how can I be better? And so, like, the different things that I learn about how I can be better and that God shows me, that's basically what you end up getting, like, on the tweets. And, like, those are the things that I end up sharing with people.
I feel like sanity in a lot of these conversations has left a lot of times because, especially on social media. And I guess that's what the kind of the stark contrast is. On social media, everybody's trying to get one up on each other, or they're trying to be right, or they're trying to be in the right camp, or they're trying to do whatever. And then now you have this kind of stuff that's thoughtful, that's like actually encouraging, that kind of really cuts through the mix. And it almost kind of seems sad that that's unusual right now. Like, that's kind of an uncommon thing.
Yeah, I think it is kind of sad. I think just like our generation is like surrounded by clutter. Like everybody's just like me, look at me. And so I think that's one of the benefits of me like diving into like my church. Like I go to church on Sundays, but then I also go on Tuesdays for like a young adult service, and I'm in a small group. So with that, it also helps because the only voice in my head isn't just social media, me, but I'm also getting poured into by people who are spending time with God, and I'm getting the word of God poured into me. So it helps change like the loudest voice in my head, So it's like God is speaking louder and people who are listening to God are speaking louder. So then the social media gets smaller, which changes my approach to how I am on the internet and stuff.
That kind of digs down. You're, if I remember right, like mid-20s, 25-ish?
Yeah.
Which, that seems young for me these days, which I'm not sure if I'm okay with that or what. But for me, social media was just starting when I got out of college. Like, I reconnected with old friends, I think even from college or, from like high school and stuff. That wasn't something that I grew up with, at all. I remember my first phone was it dialed. That's pretty much what it was, not even text at that point. So I didn't have to deal with that, as I was growing up. Now seeing that from the outside, from kind of that side, what you're talking about, social media and spending time, from that younger perspective, how would you, I'm trying to think of how best to phrase it. How do you really negate that and not let that take over your life, your sense of identity, as opposed to what God is and where that needs to live?
Yeah, I think it's just honestly being surrounded by people who are trying to go in a different direction. So I think if I'm always surrounded by people who are trying to not follow God, and those are the only people I follow and stuff like that, then over time it's going to influence you. But for me, it's kind of like how I was talking about the voices. Like, I'm surrounded by friends who are trying to follow God. I follow people who are trying to follow God and stuff like that. So it kind of helps it not take over my life, because the things that I'm letting into my life and the things I'm letting speak into my life are telling me not to let it take over my life. So I think it's just like, whose voice is going to be stronger? Who are you feeding more? And so I'm leaning more into the voice that's telling me, focus on other things outside of social media, focus on living life, focus on spending time with God, versus people who are like, oh yeah, just look at me, I look good, like my picture. Oh, you have to be cool, you have to do this. Like, so instead of living for the acceptance of the world, I'm trying to listen to voices that are just going to encourage me more to lean into God.
And I love that too, because right now I think a lot of our voices that are loudest, social media, the news, I call it infotainment.
Yeah.
That seems to be, one of the loudest things. And like I said, it's so hard, especially after this last year, to just be so consumed by that media and those voices, as opposed to diving into Tuesday night. And which is crazy for me to hear you say that, because as a musician, I'm sure you're an entrepreneur of everything. Your time is so valuable. That's a very conscious decision to spend a weeknight in church among friends in that pursuit of worship and stuff. That has to be a very intentional situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing I've learned just like walking with God is like, if you truly make him first, then it affects how you live your life. Kind of like that tweet from earlier. So if I truly view God as first, then whenever I'm building my schedule, it's not, oh, let me squeeze God in, but it's let me plan God first and then fit all the other things around it. So it's like, okay, if my priority is God, obviously I should be going to church. So let me make sure Sundays I'm always going to church. And then I personally am passionate about youth and stuff. So that's why like going to the young adult service means a lot to me, because I think it's good to fellowship with other people my age who are trying to follow God. So that's why I make sure I schedule time to go to Tuesdays, because I can see how it's going to affect my life and affect my friendships. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, then what do I have left? That's where I schedule like my work schedule and all the other things to fit around it, but making sure like my priority is like focusing my morning time with God, focusing my corporate time with God and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think it just all starts from like, you have to reverse engineer it. So if we truly say God's important, then we need to make sure we schedule time to like actually be with his people and spend time with him.
And that's so awesome. I just love how you say God's got to be loudest and first. I just really love how you say that.
Yeah.
I want to kind of peel off a little bit. You started in the medical field, and that was kind of your college. What kind of made you shift? Because nurses make good money. The medical field is obviously a cash cow right now.
Yeah, so they definitely do make great money. So it honestly was just God, like, because even when I was a kid, like, no one really forced me to do like medical stuff, even though in African culture they would want you to. But I actually had a desire to, just because I naturally like love to help people. So it was something I was interested in, and I was actually good at school, so it was fine. But I just really felt like God was telling me, like, no, I want you to do the rap thing. I want you to do that. And so it honestly was just from a place of like, whenever I was actually getting to do these classes and actually getting to do like stuff in the hospital, I just felt no fulfillment from it. And I was like, this is not where God wants me to be. And like, I could truly tell that he was telling me I need to be over here. And so even though it was a good thing, it wasn't a God thing, essentially.
You said African culture. So
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. So I just kind of want to pull at that just a little bit, because I know that's a part of your story.
Yeah. So I was born in Nigeria, and then we immigrated to the United States. That's how I ended up in Austin. And so, yeah, in Nigerian culture, they're very big on education, and just because they want you to have a good life. Like, so it's not from a negative place. They just want you to thrive. And so a lot of times, like, they're really adamant about you becoming a doctor or a lawyer or engineer. And so, like, they don't really give you very much options outside of that, but that's like what they push the heaviest, like, oh yes, my child's going to medical school, or oh yes, my child's in the engineering program. And so it definitely was very off brand for me to become a rapper, but I truly felt like that's where God wanted me to be. So it ended up working out.
What do your parents say about that now? Kind of crossing that culture.
So now that it worked out, it's fine. But beforehand, I just knew how sensitive of a subject it was. So I honestly just kind of veered away from just discussing it. And so I just knew how serious it was, that like I really felt like God was telling me to do it. So I didn't want to like raise arguments and create unnecessary like stress. So I was just like, I just kind of let my actions speak for myself. So essentially what I would do was like, if I had a talent show, I would tell my parents like, hey, you know, I'm doing a talent show, you should come. Or if it was Christmas, I'd be like, hey, can I have a microphone? So they indirectly knew, oh, she keeps asking for like microphones and music equipment for Christmas, and she keeps inviting me to these talent shows. So I don't know if they thought maybe it would be a phase, like, oh, it's like her hobby. But for me, it wasn't like just a hobby. For me, it was very serious. So I just kind of let my actions speak for myself. And like, I just always did like internships in the music industry. And eventually it just kind of worked out. So I was like, oh, surprise, Mom, I'm on a label now. So they're like, okay, that's great.
What's cool is you're one of the first women on Reach Records, which is pretty cool. And you're killing it on Reach Records, which is doubly awesome. So I want to just touch, because I'm curious, what is the worship culture in growing up in the Nigerian family, in the Nigerian culture? What's kind of the worship look like, and just how does that culture pursue God? Yeah, so I would say Nigerian worship culture is very intense. So I got to go to a Nigerian church growing up, but it was in America, but it was a predominantly like Nigerian culture church. And so, yeah, it's very intense, very severe. I would say because in Nigeria, the needs and the desires are different, kind of like how the Bible was written in like an agricultural society. So like in Nigeria, people's desires, like they're like, I need food right now or I'm going to die. Or like over there, people practice like a lot of witchcraft over there. So over there, people are like, God, I need your power and your protection because somebody's literally trying to like cast a spell on me. So over there, their emphasis on spiritual warfare a lot, because like people are doing that. It's just a natural thing that people do, like as common, kind of like people say like Louisiana people do voodoo. So like that's like really normal over there. So over there, the prayers, like people are praying with their whole body, like, God, I need you to help me because I don't want to die. I would say the worship culture is super intense and very expressive. So it's like a lot of people like screaming, waving their hands. Yeah. And then it's also a lot of celebration. So there's people who are clapping and like dancing for joy. And so I would say it's kind of like whenever you're at that point of desperation, your cries out to God are different. And so I would say, I think that's what bred that culture of like, that's how they worship. Like they worship like it was their last time to ever worship God ever. And so I think it's really cool because it gives me two worlds to kind of look at how different people view God. And it kind of helps me view God in a different standpoint too. Cause like they view God more like as a warrior of like someone to fight their battles. And so in America, we don't really necessarily like, we're not at war. So like, there's not an intense need for God to be like, yes, God, fight my battles. Cause our battles are like different. It's more of like, oh God, just provide, or oh God, like give me peace, versus like, I need you to fight my battles. I need you to defend me. And so I would say that's the difference between like Nigerian culture worship versus over here. And that is so cool. Like, I just love hearing the differences between different cultures. I mean, just even in the United States, it's just so cool. I mean, I think we get a little too stuck on it sometimes, but just the difference in, different cultures. I mean, just even from Southern worship versus Northeast or Northwest, just like, it's just always fascinating to hear how that happens, or, hear how other people worship and view God. It's just so incredible.
Definitely.
At some point, I think we probably should talk about the music. I mean,
I think
that's kind of the point of the pod. Yeah. As I've dug into Wande as an artist, we've actually started using a lot of your stuff in our youth group because it's booming. Just talk a little about the music and just being a part of Reach and a lot of collabs with Lecrae and some of the other Reach artists and stuff. Talk a little bit about that side of life.
Yeah, so I think one, it's just really beautiful to be able to collaborate with people like Lecrae, because growing up, like I listened to his music, and so now it's pretty wild that it's like, oh wow, like we're making songs together. So I think sometimes I don't realize like how crazy that is till I think back to like my younger self, like how much that would have meant to me. I think it's really beautiful to see how like God's like allowed me to be in this field and be able to have like the amazing peers that I do and be able to collaborate and make songs together. And then outside of that, just creating music is honestly a lot of fun. I feel like God has filled me with a lot of joy. So I like to reflect that in my music. So you'll get a lot of fun music a lot of the times, things that you can dance to. I love dancing. So that reflects in my music too. It's music that you can dance to and have fun to. But I also really love God. So you'll also hear a lot of my love for God and things he's taught me, like in the lyrics, if you like listen to some of the bars.
Big God came out not too long ago. So I see you're kind of on a single release. Did you release an EP not long ago? Am I imagining things?
Kinda. It's a triple single / EP. So like I consider it like triple single, but it's kind of low key an EP because it's like 3 songs. But yeah, it was called The Decision. I released one back in December, I believe, and it was like a mixture of just different songs, basically, where it's talking about like the decision you make to follow God. And
now I'm waiting for your rock record that's coming out because I've seen that you started playing electric.
Hey, you never know. Whenever I get the skills up to par, it'll be a fun time.
It's a nice pink Strat, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so
it's got to be pink.
Yeah, no, like literally, I got inspired because the worship team at my church, one of the guitar players, he had a pink guitar. And then like we started talking and I was like, wow, like I didn't know they come in the color pink. And so it inspired me to like, for my birthday gift to myself, I like basically got myself a guitar and I was like, this will be useful. Like it's an instrument. And I used to play back when I was 16, but I just paused for a while. And so I was like, let me get back to it. Let me like get my nails a little shorter so I can actually play.
I really think that we need you to be like a Corey Cooper, kind of run the Corey Cooper route. I don't know if you know Skillet much.
Oh yeah, Skillet legends.
Yeah. Get the nice purple hair, like the full on rock. I can really see that for you. I can really see the rock record coming out.
It'd be a fun record. You never know. Do a one-off single. Who knows? It could be a hit.
See, the problem is, once you start getting down the guitar route, you found out that they come in pink, but they come in like purple. They come in Hello Kitty. They come in like it's a whole rabbit hole that
collection.
So I'm pretty sure it's gonna have to be a purple guitar next for me. I can have a blue. I have a green. My wife says I have enough, but I think I can get away with a purple guitar. I'm not sure, but I might.
Maybe I'll stop. Maybe not. Maybe one more.
Oh, there's gonna be more, but like I think that's how I can get permission. Maybe is if I get
because then she'll purple and be like, "Oh, okay, fine."
But the problem is, like the purples I like, she doesn't like as much, or the purples that she likes better, like I don't like. It's yeah. You've entered down into the guitar is a gear place that you can just go for days and get lost.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I really appreciate you spending the time with us here, and I mean we're looking forward to that rock record coming out, that next rock EP coming out.
I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted on the features. Let me know if you have any favorites I should add.
Thanks for hanging out with us for this episode of the NRT Now podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And special thanks to Neon Feather for providing our theme music. Make sure to check out newreleasetoday.com and our socials for more great content. See you next episode.